Welcome back to another episode of the Adventures of a Disney Dad podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about all the basics of Disney trip planning. We're going to take you through what we look for in our process from the beginning to the end of Disney trip planning. Whether you're planning with us at the Magic Plus Travel, free travel agent services, we're happy to do all this stuff for you, do all the heavy lifting, all that kind of stuff. Links to get a quote are going to be in the show notes. But if you're not going to use a travel agent, we're going to walk you through all the steps that you need to know to plan a great Walt Disney World vacation. And Chip, we're going to jump right into this.
Yeah.
When we both kind of have big families, we both have kids, so we're coming through, with that lens and that in mind. When it comes to picking when you're going to go to Walt Disney World, I think that, obviously that's the most important starting point. But there's multiple ways that you can do it. And I'm curious as to which one is your favorite. So I think we can agree that you can do it based on your budget. You can do it based on the time of year or the dates. You can do it based on the resort that you want to stay in. Are there any other main factors that you think kind of set the tone for your vacation?
One of the ways is maybe traveling, flights. That might be. But it goes back to the dates for me. We don't look at so much of what resort it's dates and then it's price. We'll figure out the dates, and I'll have ideally a week. If we're planning a week or 5 days, we're going to have 4 days on one side, 4 days on other, just so we can find that right fit. But that's kind of the big thing is then I'm looking at flights. That's my big thing. And the problem with us is we fly Southwest. So if I'm booking a year in advance, I can't get flights until maybe 4 or 5 months before. So that's
and I think the flights kind of falls in that budget category, right? So, to me, I think you and I plan the same way. I plan based on dates. I find out when I want to go, and then I determine based on when I want to go, what resorts, what the pricing looks like for the different levels. And then I'm starting to think about my budget and where my plans start to fit into my budget. But the concrete starting point is always, to me, the dates for our family. Yeah. Now, that said, you're going to get a lot better. In my opinion, you're going to get a lot better vacation if you don't have dates in mind and you're very flexible, right? Yeah. If you can come to somebody and say, this is my budget, this is kind of what I want to do. And I plan a lot of these types of vacations, right? My budget is $5,000 sometime in the next year in 2024, 2025. I want to go. I want to be able to have the dining plan, and I want to have 4 days in the parks. We can usually work backwards and say, all right, this is going to be what your resort options are. If somebody comes and says, I have $5,000 and I want to spend a lot more time at the resorts and the pools, you can do it based on your budget that way. But then you've got the other folks where they come in and they say, I want to stay at the Polynesian and I want to stay club level, right? Because
my budget's $1,000.
You never see that. You never see that. But if you have a specific resort in mind, and I'll use the Riviera as an example, because it's one that it can be a little harder, and you're not going to get the promotional rates. You're not going to get as much flexibility in room availability because the DVC points take them, so quickly. If you're saying in the next year, I want to stay in the Riviera, that really kind of limits your choices in terms of your budget and the days that you can go. So really figuring out how you want to plan your vacation based on those criteria, I think is the most important thing at the beginning. And we all know that, to me, dates and budget end up trumping just about everything else.
Yeah. And like you said, it's one of those that if I am so strung on a date, I'll make it work. And say the promotion doesn't start till the day we get there, then and maybe the flight's the night before, then we'll stay off site and come in the next day. That's something to do as well. Tickets is probably the last thing I look at, honestly, Matt. It's one of those, what do we want to get out of our vacation? And I know you probably see a little bit more of, people are unsure of, but it's, hey, we know we're going to be in the parks a lot this year because we're going to spend a lot of times in parks. And then maybe next year we're going to spend only 2 days in the parks and then enjoy the resort. So
I tend to tell people that park tickets should be the last thing they think about, along with what parks they're going to go to.
Yeah.
Because to me, what kind of vacation you want to have, whether you want to spend more time in general in the parks or more time at the resorts, really dictates more of your trip. The tickets are a fixed cost.
Yeah.
There's not going to be promotions really related to the tickets. There might be related to your package, and we'll talk about that in a second. But in general, like you're talking more like, is Park Hopper going to fit into our budget? Are we going to be able to bump from 3 days to 5 days? That kind of stuff, you can have more flexibility at the end. But if the dates don't fit or the resort, room rate doesn't fit, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And the big tip that I would have is flexibility. Because if you really think about the way Disney promotions work, a lot of times you're booking a trip sometimes a year in advance, especially if you're booking it the busy times of the year. And the promotions for those dates aren't out yet. Like they're not going to be out until, like, we don't have any for January yet, and we're 4 months out. So and we should hear them soon, but like you would expect that they're about a quarter behind. And one of the things that I tell people all the time is, like, if you book a moderate resort now and you get it in your head that you have things set in stone, and then a promotion comes out, it can completely change your trip, right? You could get a free dining plan, you get free Park Hopper, you get 35% off a room, and maybe the deluxe resort then becomes an opportunity for your budget. And then are you like, say this is what I see the most, Chip, is people book a moderate resort like Port Orleans Riverside, Coronado Springs. A promotion comes out and they're getting 30 to 35% off of the moderate resort, but also of like Animal Kingdom Lodge.
Oh, okay.
So now basically what you were paying before for the moderate, it's maybe a little bit more to bump up to Animal Kingdom Lodge.
Now this is
That's tempting.
Yeah, this kind of gets me to my question to you is, they say, hey, we're probably more in the moderate range in our price range. How do you steer somebody? And I'll be able to answer that question too. But how do you steer somebody to a resort, or how do you say, hey, these are my top choices, but Matt, we really want to stay at the one that's your bottom,
Yeah, so I usually keep my own personal preferences out of it unless they ask.
Okay.
So I just say, like, here are the resort options. Here are the pros and cons of all the different ones, whether it's price, like doing it so frequently and looking at the pricing so often, I can usually tell when something's mispriced, right?
Okay.
If Coronado Springs is higher than Caribbean Beach, I'm going to point that out, that Coronado Springs is a little overpriced at that point, right?
Gotcha.
The Caribbean Beach should typically be the most expensive moderate because of the Skyliner. So I'm looking at those kind of things to see, like, is the pricing kind of wonky for this date? Are they getting a really good deal at Port Orleans Riverside, or is Port Orleans Riverside a little like close to Caribbean Beach? In which case, Caribbean Beach makes more sense because you get the Skyliner access.
Yeah.
But usually, like, the what they want to do on the trip sets the tone, right? Gotcha. It's either somebody wants the Skyliner because they want to get in and out of the parks, or they want really good dining and they're leaning, if they're in the moderate category, they're leaning towards Coronado Springs, because Coronado Springs has great dining.
For sure.
But it really just depends. I do get guests that ask me all the time, like, which one's your favorite? And they're always surprised that I say Coronado Springs, right? Because I'm not a Caribbean Beach fan.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing that I see is, things change and people get their dream vacation in their mind, and then they have an opportunity to, like, throw it all out the window and move to a different resort, different room, different budget, different park tickets, the whole thing, once the new promotions come out, and that can really throw people off. So I think being flexible is really, really important.
And so looking at the price side of it, what from like, let's say the All-Star Sports to Caribbean Beach, what's normally on average? I don't want to say, there might be an average price, there might not be, on the difference between those and a night. Like, what's the kind of the
so
going
the
average?
Range for the value resorts, in my experience, is anywhere from like $135 to $235 a night. So
Okay.
like if you go, I just quoted somebody today, it's a late booking for, just before Christmas. I think the value resorts were around like 230 a night. And then when you look at January, you can get a value resort for as low as 117 a night,
Oh
right?
wow. Yeah.
So, and that was like a one-off, like really weird, but that's no promotion. Like it's possible if a promotion comes out for that date, it could be under $100 a night, right?
Wow. Yeah.
But you have to keep in mind, like there's a pool refurbishment at All Star Music for the first 5 months of the year next year.
Oh
So those
yeah.
those rates are lower. So that's something I'm talking about to guess, right? Normally the three All Stars are about the same price, but you can get one for $30 less a night if you don't care about the feature pool. And
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
people don't, right? Because if they're staying at a value resort, and I think you and I are of the same mindset about this, if I'm staying at a value resort, I'm not spending much time at the resort.
No. Yeah. I'd rather go hang out in a lobby somewhere else. You know.
Yeah, you're mostly spending your time in the parks. That's not to say that the pools aren't great because there's some great pools for kids. Don't mean that at all. But like for the most part, you'd rather save your money and just be in the parks. So like when I have people say, "Oh, I'm considering staying off site," like there's no reason to stay off site if you can get a Disney resort for under $100 or $115.
And kind of going with that, I walked through. I had to go take something back to Chris when our buddy Chris, when we were down on our trip, and I walked through all the pools of all the All Stars, and I was like, wow, these are kind of cool. Like if the one is like, I want to say it's movies has like Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of cool. The one thing I noticed more than anything is I didn't see a whole lot of shade. So that's
There's
kind
no
of
shade at all. It
yeah.
seems.
The All
Yeah,
Stars kind of stinks with that. Like there's no real shade, but
and I don't think there's much at Pop Century either.
you might be right with that. Yeah,
Yeah, I think all of those like you're not getting the lush greenery that you're getting at the Animal Kingdom Lodge pools
yeah,
or anything like that. That's for sure. But once you've got this kind of narrowed down, I think it's just going back to it. You've got to remember to be flexible because I see people's plans change, all the time significantly for all those reasons. So let's say you've got a date, you've got a resort in mind or a category of resorts. Chip, how do you decide which resort category or which resort specifically you're going to stay at for your family?
The first thing is what kind of vacation we want to do. Do we want to be in the parks more? Do we want to be in the resort more? If we do both. But if I'm looking at a budget and I'm trying to think, okay, you know what? If I can stay at a deluxe and only do a couple of days at the parks, I would lean towards that just because I have younger kids. They do feel like they miss out a lot, but if we go rope drop, take a break, and go back in the evening until it closes, and maybe take advantage of the deluxe evening hours, then we've accomplished the day. I think that's one of the big
Right.
things I look at. Now, the other thing would be transportation. All right, what parks do we want to spend in? With my little kids, we're going to spend more time in Magic Kingdom. So I I either want to be. I don't always want to say I want to be on the Skyliner because I mean you're paying the heavy price for that. Um, but I want to stay on resort for sure for that because I want to get dropped off and not have to go through TTC. Um, and but then
And that's a really good point because if you know for sure, like if you look at your trip and you're like, I'm not going to Animal Kingdom, right?
yeah,
If you know that from the get go, that really changes your resort options.
yeah,
Because I think you really want to try and stay on the Skyliner or the monorail if at all possible, because you're going to save a lot of time,
for
a
sure.
lot of time.
But
So
but
like that's important.
I also go back to thinking if I'm not going to Animal Kingdom, I'm not against staying at Animal Kingdom Lodge too. With that in mind,
Hmm.
but if we're going to spend the majority of our time, I would love to stay at the Contemporary or Bay Lake and be able to walk. I think
Sure.
that's a huge. Um, but then I'm looking transportation. Okay, maybe if I'm going to be in moderate, maybe I don't want to be on 6 bus stops like if I were at Old Key West or Saratoga.
Right.
And my buddy Max, who he is a big component of bus stops. He loves only having one bus stop at Port Orleans, Riverside, or French Quarter, and that's his big thing. Is he just loves the one bus stop.
Yeah. And I think those are all really good points and trying to figure out what's like, the best fit for your family. So you're at that point, you're starting to think, am I going to spend more time at the resorts? Do I want to do a split stay? I don't know that
Yeah.
I necessarily recommend that for beginners, especially if you don't have a travel agent. If you're listening to a Disney planning podcast, I think you're deep in it for sure. But
And the other thing was kind of going in the split stay. If you're a bigger family, like we both are, sometimes split stay is just not feasible because you're getting food, you're getting all of that, and having to pack everything up. That
mhm.
if you and I were going down, hey, let's do a different resort every night just to say we did it.
Right. And that brings up another really good point that came up with one of my guests today. Sometimes your party size dictates your resort.
Yeah.
If you have 5 people or more in your family, you're not staying at Coronado typically because they don't hold, most of the rooms don't hold 5. And you're not staying at the majority of the value resorts because it doesn't make sense to book 2 rooms. And outside of Art of Animation, most of them don't hold 5 people.
Yeah.
So you're already looking at Port Orleans, Riverside, Caribbean Beach. That's your entry level Walt Disney World trip. So, that's important to keep in mind too. And then you get into things, these are things that I love to talk about just from our experience with our families, right?
Yeah.
Is the room big enough for a pack and play?
Yeah.
Sometimes you can fit 4 in a room with a baby, but is that room really feasible with a pack and play? And
Yeah.
our wives will tell you that stuff matters.
Oh, for sure.
So, you start thinking about those things, and that's where leaning on a travel agent can really give you that experience
Hey,
that you may not have.
add in that double stroller too with that pack and play.
Right. Because nobody ever wants to, like, you don't want to leave it in the hallway at the resort or whatever. So let's say, we've got our budget in mind. We've now decided kind of what trip we want to have. We know generally whether or not we want to have like 4 days in the parks, 5 days in the parks, whatever. We've picked our resort. Chip, what are you thinking when you think about add-ons? Like, this is typically the next part of the process. We're thinking about add-ons like Memory Maker. We're
Yeah.
thinking about we're starting to think about dining, starting to think about multi-pass, building these things into our budget. What do you think about some of those add-ons? And we'll talk about dining and enchanting experiences in a second, but just focus on those for now. Like, what do you think about like Memory Maker, for example?
Memory maker.
Park Hopper is the other one
Yeah.
that I want
Yeah.
to touch on.
So depending on how many days you're there is really the memory maker question. If you're only going to be in the park for 2 days, it might not be worth it. If you're there, I would say 4 days or longer. I think memory maker is worth every single penny.
Uh-huh.
And I'm a big memory maker. I'd probably buy it for 2 days too. But if we're looking at budget things, I might skip out on it. That might be the one thing I would be like, you know what? Let's save our money. Let's use it for multi-pass or what's it called again? Is it
Multi-pass.
multi-pass? Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I would use it for multi-pass, just for those if I'm only going to be there 2 days. I think that's where. But yeah,
And that's a great point because you can always purchase it later. So if you go for 2 days or 3 days and you're like, I'm on the fence. I don't know if I'm going to use PhotoPass. I don't know if I'll like the ride photos. Like it's like a $15 or $20 difference to buy
yeah,
it after your trip.
yeah,
So if you're not sure if you want to spend the money, just wait. Like don't pre-buy it. I advocate for it. Chip, I'm the same way. Like we use the heck out of it.
yep,
But if you're on the fence and you're not sure and you want to save the extra $200, just wait and see how the 2 days goes. See, you'll have the watermark on the photos, but you'll be able to see them
yep,
and see if they're worth it and if you want to buy those memories and buy it afterwards.
yep.
And I think you're on the right track there. What do you think about Park Hopper? What's your verdict?
With a family, that was kind of our discussion this year. That was one of our big topics this year was, do we go 8 days and no park hopper, or do we do six days with a park hopper? I mean, it's about the same price, but for us, and we went with the 6 day park hopper, and it was more or less just because, you know what, if we go in the morning, we do everything we want to do, and at night we want to go eat somewhere, or the kids want to go ride a different ride, we're going to do that. And it might also depend on the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
If it's crowded at the one park, it might not be crowded at Hollywood Studios or vice versa.
Right.
And luckily we did that because we got rained out with the when we had Slinky Dog, and we were able to get a anytime fast pass for 2 days later when we were going to be there, be at Hollywood Studios, but we went somewhere else in the morning and then finished up at Hollywood Studios that night. So
Yeah. From my perspective, anything under like 5 or 6 days, park hopper is something I typically recommend.
yeah.
And it's for that flexibility, right? Like if you go, a lot of families, what I'll see is the first 3 days of a trip, they're going to Magic Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, and Epcot. And then the last day of the trip, they're not sure where they're going to want to go. And it's based on like where their family wants to prioritize. And usually it's based on where they went the 3 days before, right?
Yeah.
What did you miss? Or what is something that you really want to hit again? If you have park hopper, you have more flexibility where on that fourth day you can say, all right, we really want to do Slinky Dog again, and we really want to do Tron again. So let's hit Slinky Dog in the morning, Tron and the fireworks at night, and you've got that flexibility to really, make the trip what you want it to be. And park hopper is just not that. Look, expense is relative, but it's not that expensive in the terms of the kind of vacation we're talking about.
And I go with that. It's like, okay, well, Epcot closes at 9 every night, even during the summer. Animal Kingdom's closing at 6 or 7. Hollywood Studios was 9, 9:30, maybe 10. I mean, Magic Kingdom sometimes is open till midnight.
And the reverse is true too, right? You can get those early hours at Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
Like if you really want to maximize your time, you could start at Animal Kingdom at 6:30 in the morning. Like whatever time they start letting people in the gates, if they open at 7 or 7:30,
yes,
you're getting in around 6:30, 7 o'clock, going to Flight of Passage or whatever, and then you can hang out until midnight at Magic Kingdom. It's a long day.
Yeah,
and you can't do that without a park hopper.
Yeah, we did it. It was worth it. I mean, it's one of those that we left at noon. No, we left about 10:30. We had to go to Tiana's. We went to Magic Kingdom to ride Tiana's. Left and took a break, and then came back and closed the Magic Kingdom out that night.
I just love, especially with kids, I love the flexibility that park hopper gives, and I think it's really important. It also makes dining, which we're going to talk about in a second, so much easier.
Yes,
because you don't have like I've got a client right now that's going to Disney in the middle of October. Okay, so the I think it's the 14th, the 15th, the 17th, and the 18th all have party days. So the only day that she's there is the 16th that does not have a party.
Okay.
What does that mean? That means they have to go to Magic Kingdom that day if they want to see Happily Ever After. It's the only day on their trip that they can do it. They don't have park hopper, and so her dining is coming up in 3 days. And she sent her. I'm sorry, her dining was a month ago.
Yeah.
But when her dining was coming up, she was emailing me and saying like, I don't know what to do because I want to do this dining, but it's available on this day and so on and so forth, and they don't have park hopper. So if she wants to go to Magic Kingdom and has to go that day on the 16th, any dining that she wants to do in Magic Kingdom has to be on the 16th.
Yeah.
That's frustrating for people, and vice versa. Like if you want to go to Tusker House, for example, and you don't want to spend your entire day at Animal Kingdom, without park hopper, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So, it does have a really large impact on dining. And the last one that I'll mention, because we're going to talk about this in a second, it's huge for Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique.
Yes.
Because if you get in that scenario that I just described, and the only day for Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique is on October 17th, you're either going to Magic Kingdom and you're out of there by 4 because there's a party, or you're buying park hopper. You don't have a choice. And with Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, like it's just, you're never going to be able to get the day that you want. Typically, it just doesn't work out that way. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like we've got our resort, we've got our tickets in general decided. We know if we're doing park hopper or not in general. We're talking enchanting extras. So any of the tours, extra stuff, Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, and dining. How do you go about whether or not you want to try and fit in some of those experiences? And maybe not for our families because our kids are a little too young for a lot of the experiences. They can't do Caring for Giants Africa trek and stuff like that. So in general, like, how would you recommend if you're talking to somebody going to Walt Disney World?
Well, I say if you have a daughter that's under 10, and even up to 12, I think is Bippity Boppity Boutique. But if they've never done it, it's definitely once. You got to do it at least once, I think, for your daughters. And it's I didn't go this last time because I hung out with Bear and we did some rides, but um, just seeing my daughters when they came up to me and smiling and everything, and it's one of those things I think you need to do. You don't have to do it if you're trying to be on a budget. You don't have to do it.
I'll
Listen, we
tell you,
don't.
you have to do it.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, you have to do it.
I'll lean towards that. And listen,
Yeah,
we actually
because
asked.
you can do it. You can do it in an affordable way for
Yeah,
sure.
and it's 100%. So we asked grandparents. They knew we were going. We asked for gift cards for the girls for Bippity Boppity Boutique, so they felt like they were paying for it. And that was their Christmas gift last year.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of a cool thing for my daughters, as they knew that they were going to go, and now the pressure was on me to get it booked, but we made it
Right.
happen. And so I definitely lean towards that. Um, any of the other tours, if it's your first time, second time, I wouldn't suggest like, hey, you need to go do a tour. If you want to do a tour, if you're nerdy like us, I think it's something I like. I really want to do any type of tour. Actually, like now that Matt and I did the Caring for Giants, like now I've got questions. Like I want to ask all the tour guides questions and get everything answered because they will do that.
Right. I think when it comes to the tours and stuff, it really comes down to, like, do you have a kid that really loves elephants? Right.
Yeah,
Like you and I would recommend the Caring for Giants tour over and over and over again. It was only $40 a person. Like
yeah,
that's a no brainer. Like if you have kids that love animals, the Wild Africa Track would be incredible. If you have kids that love plants, or you have family members that love plants, gardening, behind the seats tour,
oh yeah,
great experience. Anybody that's a Disney nerd, Keys to the Kingdom tour, great experience. All those things are things you should consider. But if you're going on your first or second trip, I lean towards Chip. You've got enough going on. Like
yeah.
just put that on the list for a future trip, and maybe put some of that away. Another one that I really want to do again is Starlight Safari. I think that one is worth it for it's post park hours. So I think that's a great experience. But there's all kinds of other stuff that you can do, and
For sure.
and a lot of it can be fairly affordable. So there's stuff that's free too, like the mini golf that you get with your vacation package. You can go and do that. There's also low cost foot golf that you can do at the
The
different courses.
the campfire, they'll give you I think you get a free s'more. You can upcharge and
Mm-hmm.
get a fancier marshmallow, I guess, but you can do the s'mores and then watch a movie outside. I mean, that's pretty
Movies
cool.
under the stars are incredible. There's carriage rides at some of the resorts. Like there's a lot of cool stuff going on that is fairly affordable. But if you're on your first, second, or even third trip, like that's stuff that you kind of put off a little bit, I think, or at least put on the back burner before you really start thinking about it. When you start thinking about dining for your vacation, let's say your 60-day date is rolling up. What are your top priorities in terms of what you're thinking in dining?
So we have a couple schools of thought as we're thinking, all right, what do we want to do, like eating wise? Are we on the dining plan? That's a big concern, all right, because now I got to find a sit down restaurant every night. Um, if we're not on the dining plan, we're looking, all right, how many meals can we afford to eat? We're a family of seven.
Budget.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where it is. So honestly, this is kind of I would eat at Disney Springs if you want to go sit down. It's a little bit cheaper than eating sometimes at the buffets. And you're going to go home full as all get out. Like we ate at Chef Art Smith's Homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my favorite meals.
Yeah.
Was $30, so it's what $10 more than Applebee's cost. Um,
Polite Pig. There's a
Polite,
lot. There's a
oh,
lot of really, really good restaurants there, and there's high end stuff too. You can eat at the Boathouse, Chef Morimoto's.
yeah, you can go to STK and get
Yeah,
a
STK.
$150 steak.
Yeah,
Or you
but
can go get the prime rib at the Steakhouse 71 that was $37 and was phenomenal.
or you can get the best burger on property at Steakhouse 71. But I really think the most important thing you've got to start out with though is character dining.
Yeah.
Do they want to do character dining? Are we looking at Cinderella's Royal Table? Are we looking at Be Our Guest? Are we looking at? I'll throw Space 220 in there just because it's so hard to get.
Yeah.
But like, are we really looking at those kinds of experiences? Tusker House, Topolino's Terrace, and the reason why I think about those first is those can dictate other areas of your vacation because they're so hard to get. So
And I'm going with oh crap, I said it last time on the show. Over at Epcot,
Akershus.
Akershus breakfast. It's for princesses. If you don't want to pay the top dollar to eat at Cinderella's Royal Table, go to Akershus. It's a
And
great steal.
1900 Park Fair is another one. Like
Oh, so
those are
good.
the ones that like when I'm planning with somebody, if they mention those or if that's part of the discussion, that's the first thing that I want to know because I know how much it can dictate other areas of their vacation. And then we're starting to think about, well, where, based on the categories of dining that we're looking at, where are we staying?
Yeah.
Because how much time am I going to spend doing transportation to get to this place? And what park day are we doing? So, for example, like if you were staying at Coronado Springs and you want to go, let's say you want to go to Animal Kingdom Lodge. There's no, or you want to go to Animal Kingdom, I'm sorry, for your park day. There's no way that you'd want to book a dining reservation at Ohana or 1900 Park Fair or Chef Mickey's or anything like that because you're going to spend 3 hours of your day doing transportation.
Oh yeah.
You're going to be taking buses to this place, to this place, to this place, and like trying to like it's just going to be you're going to spend way too much time messing around with that stuff. So, I'm thinking number one, are we willing to like Uber or take a Lyft from our resort for that dining reservation? Because that eliminates that issue. Or we need to be rethinking, what we're scheduling here. And so really that like dictates a lot of it. And then you think what we talked about earlier with the tickets. Are we going to have park tickets if we have to go into a park, right?
Yeah.
How's it going to fit into our park days and what our schedule is? And that's why like I typically tell people try and find one character meal if you've got kids that you really want to do. Pick one, start there, and then we start to build out like, do you want to do a table service meal every day? Or are we more trying to try different things? I literally, before we started recording, just sent an email to a guest saying like, look, I wouldn't book anything for your trip. I
Yeah.
really would. Like, I would go. Like, they don't need to do character dining. They don't want to spend like $80 a person at Be Our Guest on a table service meal. So what I would do is like go to Magic Kingdom and snack around.
Yep.
Try the spring rolls. Try the cinnamon roll. Like try different things.
Get the corn dog nuggets with
Get the
cheese.
corn dog nuggets at Casey's. Like the one place that I have a little bit of a problem with that is Hollywood Studios, just because
Yeah,
I think the food in general sucks.
Get on the Skyliner, go over to the Riviera, get the pizza and burger.
Which is exactly what Chip and I did. So we like live by this advice. Like we don't typically like to eat there, but like ABC Commissary has some good options. And then you go into Star Wars and there's some good themed options over there. Woody's Lunchbox has some great snack options.
Listen, and we've played the roulette game on getting last minute dining reservations.
Mm-hmm.
2 summers ago, I got beaches and cream. Never thought I'd ever see that. And then we stayed at Saratoga and we ate at Turf Club the one night because we had got in our room late. Like we literally got it at 4 o'clock and we were tired. We went over to Turf Club and my mom said it's probably the best meal she had.
Yeah.
The Turf Club.
Yeah, and I think it really comes down to your experience level. And so if you're doing this by yourself with no travel agent and you're kind of, learning as you go, less is more. Like keep it
Yes.
simple. Don't get yourself in a position where you don't know where you're going or things are going to get hectic and like trying to especially when it comes to trying to get to resorts, that's where it makes me nervous for people is when they're trying to get the boardwalk from Coronado Springs while also being at, Magic Kingdom or something. Like that's just a nightmare of a day.
And I know you've had an experience. We were at Saratoga trying to get to Contemporary, so we are going to go to the Magic Kingdom and walk over. The first two buses that stopped for Magic Kingdom on the bus loop were packed.
Yep.
So then we took one to Disney Springs, and I'm calling dining saying, hey, we're going to be like 10 minutes late. Like, please don't charge us. I'm not very nice to my wife because she knows I'm like, I hate being late and losing my mind. And then we show up and they're like, no, you're good.
They never care about that, by the way. Like, and you know, you never want to be late, and you do want to try and communicate those things. You can typically call and let them know. But like, they're not like, if you end up a half hour late because of transportation issues, the Skyliner goes down or whatever, they're usually pretty flexible with that kind of thing. Sometimes it may mean a longer wait for you once you do get there, but they'll work it out. But I think keeping things simple on dining is important. And then you're basically at this point in our planning process, we're within the 60-day range. So the things you need to be thinking about, and this is like, from my perspective, the most overlooked things in terms of budget. People forget about this stuff all the time. Transportation to and from the airport, it is not necessarily cheap. You are at least going to be spending $100 total for your party. It could be upwards of $300 if you get private transportation to and from. I had an Uber that was like $80 to just one way to Disney for myself. Like, if you get that, you know, peak rate or whatever where they jack up the price, you're out of luck. So it's basically Mears is the cheapest, and it's usually like $16 each way for an adult. But you're like stopping at other resorts, and it takes a really long time and all that fun stuff. Upwards of like 300 total round trip for you know, private transportation, or you could rent a car like Chip loves to do.
It also depends on your party size. So like if we were a family of 8, so like going Mears, it was going to cost me closer to 500, or like, so like doing the Mears bus was the same price as going on doing
Happy
private
Limo or
doing private.
Yeah.
So it's one of those that maybe you shop around that a little bit. I mean, there's your travel agent can always give you advice and help you out with that. I'm sure they work with people.
That's exactly what happens with my family too, by the way. Like, we have 8 people traveling in October, and it's 150 each way with Happy Limo for a Sprinter van.
Yeah.
And they bring the van right up underneath the airport, you know, terminal. They come and help you with the bags, which is huge for us with kids because we don't have enough hands. And they take it right down, and we're on our way. They'll stop at Starbucks or stop at the grocery. Like, they'll do all that kind of stuff for you. It's worth every penny, for sure. And then the other big thing. Oh, go ahead, Chip.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
So the other thing that you really forget about is strollers. I think that's the last like nuanced thing we can add in that you should, you know, think about whether or not you want to order groceries in advance and doing that stuff, because you don't want to wait until you get there to order that. But getting a stroller delivered is a game changer. The Disney strollers suck. If you've listened to our past episodes, we talk about that a lot. Bad. They're hard plastic, gross. The ones you can rent are affordable. They're like $120 for 4 days, and they're nice jogging strollers. Like, that's a no-brainer. But those are the budget items that people really forget about. Like, transportation in a stroller, you're looking at another $500 in your budget.
Yeah, and so possibly. Like that was one thing we did is we actually just bought one on Facebook Marketplace because we knew we wanted a double stroller for the airport. We actually had a double and a single stroller, and really just used the double. The single carried the baby car seat, whatever, but we had it just in case, and we checked it. You can always check strollers at the gate. And a kind of a tip, if you're flying Southwest, make sure you keep your receipt, because if they damage your stroller and it's not they break something, you can always file a claim, and they've paid people off for it. So that's something I would recommend. But if you're one of those people that, hey, my kids are 6 and 7, 8 years old, and you're not a stroller then 100% rent a stroller. It is worth every penny. And my last tip, kind of going with that last minute planning, make sure you take some cash. I'm
terrible at this. I never. I'm
not a cash person. Like I never have cash on me, but anytime I travel, I always have about $100 in cash, just so I can tip whoever.
Yeah.
And tolls, if you're driving, tolls, it's one of those things too.
Yeah. I always end up popping my mother-in-law and then Venmoing her because I never have cash with me. So I'm right there with you. And that takes you really beginning to end for all our beginners out there, or even our veterans that are just looking for a little bit of advice and thought process of how you plan a Disney vacation. I think that really takes you up to having the vacation of your dreams and all that fun stuff. Is there other nuanced stuff in there for more specific trips, like somebody that wants to pop over to Universal, pop over to do a split stay? Yeah, like we've talked about that for our kind of advanced folks
Yeah.
a little bit, and you should definitely use a travel agent for any of those. And I'll repeat this, Chip, and I say it a lot. Like I would love for anybody that listens to this show to use me to book their vacation, but I would advocate if you know somebody, if your cousin is a Disney travel agent, like use them, right? I think using anybody, whether it's me or somebody else, is better than you trying to do it by yourself.
Yeah,
And whether
and never pay for it. Like
oh yeah, you don't like our services are always free. Like anybody that's trying to charge you, you should kind of ignore them and go find somebody. And you're supporting a small business, so all travel agents earn a commission based on booking trips that's paid by Disney. That's why it's free to you. And I think supporting people's business, well, again, whether it's mine or somebody else or supporting our podcast, whatever, like it's better for you for your vacation that you've got somebody that you can rely on that's in your corner that can help you, and it doesn't have to just be me. So I'm just a general, like, you should use somebody advocate, and I think that that's important that people hear that. So all the links to get a quote are in the show notes. You guys know where to find us on social media. All that stuff will be in the show notes, and we'll be back next week. Chip,
Yeah.
I've got a trip coming up, man. I'm getting amped up here.
I'm
So
jealous. Yeah,
I'm a
definitely
couple
jealous.
weeks away. So with that, we will see you guys next week. We'll see you in the parks.
And we'll
Chip,
see
we're
when we
out of
see
here,
you.
man.
Yeah, we'll see you.
All right.